The Murda School in Queen Village with just a neighborhood partnership is another great example of that. You know, I think we're obvious, so let's start with the obvious fact, which is that 82% of the kids in the public schools in the city of Philadelphia come from families that qualify them for a free lunch. That is, the majority of kids in the public school system are from families with very limited means. And knowing, for example, that the unemployment rate for people without a high school diploma in the city is 16%, and the unemployment rate of people with bachelor's degree is 4%. There's nothing I tell my 17-year-old more than take a look at that chart and understand the importance of going to college, right? That is the passport to this economy. And so for those families who have little choices because their parents are not connected to the economy of the 21st century, getting an education is absolutely key. And clearly that has determined a lot of the debate and discussion here and is absolutely essential. I am agnostic on public versus charter. I think either can work if they're well managed. We can debate that. What I think is really key, and I'm really optimistic with Dr. Haidt being here, is that like Paul Vallis, two commissioners before him, I think he avoided and avoids either-or choices. You've got 80% of the kids who have no choice but to go through a public or charter system. They can't afford to move to the suburbs. They can't afford private school. But you've got 20% of the city in the middle class and a growing number of millennials and people in their 30s for whom staying in the city and quality public schools are absolutely key. And that's not one or the other. A good public school system should serve all, and I think Haidt gets that very loud and clear. He's not been divisive on that issue, which sometimes people have been. Obviously, they face this huge challenge of a change in funding from the state level. That has dramatically improved, whether it's a re-election campaign, a change in heart, or good fiscal management, I don't care. More money coming from the state to public schools in Philadelphia is great. So I think the number one issue is getting good funding for the schools for all, getting good management. Then you step in. I think the Penn example is an absolutely wonderful example, but very hard to replicate, in that there is not an employer, almost any other place in the city, who has that many employees, that physically concentrated immediately adjacent to them, that it's in their institutional self-interest to adopt that area. So, and we have tried to convince any number of Center City employers to adopt schools in Center City. And while people contribute, only 10% of the downtown workforce lives in Center City, right? So that's a constraint. That said, I think there are lots of ways that parent groups, that businesses can help adopt schools, and the school district itself needs to be much more flexible. One of the challenges, those of you who are parents or have tried to deal with the public bureaucracy, is you want to donate something to the school, but you run into this rule, this constraint, and setting up systems so that what Penn did, which is donate resources, can be replicated on a smaller scale is absolutely essential. So that was a really long answer. I think those businesses, those institutions that have resources, oh, by the way, Penn also has a school of education, key point. Not many employers have a school of education to donate those resources. So a very important model, but I think what we need to do is find other ways within the business community to channel resources. But we also need public or charters. Charters are set up as nonprofits so they can accept contributions. The school district has to get better at accepting resources in a number of ways. Big issue, but I really see Haidt is positioned to do that very, very well. Sure.